Paul Heyman's shocking reaction to Roman Reigns' surprise return on WWE RAW. He thought Roman Reigns was gone for good, but Paul Heyman never saw this coming. After months of silence, the tribal chief returned to WWE RAW, and Paul Heyman's reaction was nothing short of shocking. What happens when loyalty is betrayed, and vengeance returns to the ring? In this explosive video, we break down Roman Reigns' jaw-dropping return to WWE RAW, the moment Paul Heyman realized his mistake, and how his alliance with Seth Rollins' new faction may have just ignited a war no one is ready for. The crowd was loud, deafening, but nothing could drown out the look on Paul Heyman's face. It wasn't shock in the ordinary sense. It wasn't the gasp of a fan seeing a long-lost favorite walk back through the curtain. No, this was something deeper. Something colder. It was the kind of terror that only hits when your worst nightmare doesn't just walk back into your life, but stands across from you, eyes locked, no words needed. For weeks, Heyman had been smiling. Standing at the center of Monday Night Raw with Seth Rollins by his side, basking in the chaos. He thought it was done. Roman Reigns was gone. Buried under medical leave, betrayal, and whispers of leukemia that turned into silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just end storylines, it ends legacies. But legacies, it turns out, don't die in silence. They rise, when the lights go dark and the music stops. It was supposed to be a routine promo. Seth Rollins, smug and dripping in arrogance, flanked by Bronson Reed, the Creed brothers, and the smirking presence of Paul Heyman, all standing beneath a crimson Raw banner. They laughed about the bloodline. About how Solo Sikoa had become just another echo of the past. About how Roman Reigns was never coming back. About how the tribal chief had been dethroned, not by force, but by forgetting. That's when it happened. The lights cut. The crowd hushed. Then came the sound that hadn't been heard in nearly 100 days. A single, chilling line. "Acknowledge me." And in that instant, every eye in the arena shifted, not to the ramp, but to Paul Heyman. The man who once knelt at Roman's feet. The man who held the microphone for the tribal chief like it was a relic from heaven. The man who swore allegiance, then turned his back. He didn't blink. He couldn't. Because walking down that ramp, flanked by shadows and silence, was the one man no one expected, Roman Reigns. But this wasn't the Roman they remembered. This wasn't the golden champion draped in titles, backed by the Usos, basking in dominance. No. This Roman was different. Leaner. Sharper. Face pale, jaw clenched. His eyes didn't scan the crowd. They locked straight onto Heyman, like a lion who had spent too long in the dark, and now returned, not to survive, but to punish. Security rushed to the ring. Seth motioned for calm. Bronson stepped forward, flexing, ready to engage. But Roman didn't break stride. He entered the ring slowly. Each step echoed like thunder beneath the lights. And still, Heyman didn't move. He was frozen. Somewhere between guilt and horror. Somewhere between remembering who he once served, and realizing that the devil he betrayed had come home. Then Roman took the mic. He didn't yell. He didn't grandstand. He simply said, "You picked the wrong side." Silence fell like a guillotine. Heyman's lips moved, but no sound came. His hands trembled. The crowd had erupted into chants, a roar of disbelief and adrenaline. But inside that ring, between those ropes, only one thing mattered. Roman Reigns was back. And he didn't come for cheers. He came for vengeance. This return didn't just rewrite the night. It shattered the entire narrative Heyman had built over the past few months. Because while Paul aligned himself with Seth Rollins, forming what he called the future of WWE, he forgot one crucial truth. You don't crown a new king when the old one isn't dead. Behind the scenes, Raw's locker room had already begun to shift. Seth's faction was gaining power. Heyman was pulling strings like a puppet master, whispering promises into ears of rising stars. Bronson Reed had become his enforcer. The Creed brothers, his pit bulls. Seth, his golden boy. But none of them had answers for Roman Reigns. Especially not Paul. In the days following Roman's disappearance, Heyman had insisted he was concerned for Reigns' health. He told press he'd always love Roman like a son. But off the record, he made calls. Brokered alliances. Spread rumors that Roman couldn't return. That he was finished. That the dynasty had fallen. But dynasties don't fall. They wait. And on this night, Paul Heyman saw what happens when you bet against a man who built his empire with blood. Backstage, chaos reigned. Producers scrambled. Cameras chased reactions. Sami Zayn stood watching a monitor with his mouth slightly open. Cody Rhodes sat frozen in the locker room. Even Solo Sikoa, over on SmackDown, was seen watching the broadcast from the gorilla position, arms crossed, face unreadable. But the camera never left Heyman. And as Roman slowly approached him, step by step, we all saw it. The fear. Not of pain. But of guilt. Because Paul Heyman wasn't afraid of what Roman might do. He was afraid of what Roman already knew. Roman stopped inches from him. The mic dropped to the mat. No words now. Only eyes. And in that moment, the WWE Universe held its collective breath. Would Roman strike? Would he forgive? Would he declare war? Instead, he did something worse. He turned his back and walked away. But the message was clear. I see you. I know what you did. And I'm coming. Heyman collapsed into a chair at ringside, head in hands. Seth barked orders. The Creed brothers tried to look unbothered. Bronson looked ready to fight. But they all knew the ground beneath them had just cracked. And the tribal chief had returned to reclaim what was his. But why now? Why return after all this time? Sources inside WWE have revealed that Roman had been recovering privately in California, battling complications from an undisclosed illness, possibly tied to past leukemia treatments. His return wasn't just a storyline comeback. It was a defiance of fate. And Paul Heyman? He had no idea. Because the one man who used to know Roman Reigns better than anyone else had stopped listening. In private meetings, Paul had told talent that Roman's story was finished. He assured Seth that the new Shield-like faction was the future. That the bloodline was a dead name. That Roman's silence was a coffin. But Roman wasn't silent. He was watching. Listening. Waiting. And now, the reckoning begins. In the weeks ahead, alliances will shatter. Seth Rollins will be forced to pick between loyalty to Heyman and self-preservation. The bloodline, scattered as it is, may rise again, fractured but vengeful. And Heyman, the wise man who once spoke for the head of the table, may find himself with no table left to kneel at. Because the silence is over. Roman Reigns is back. And Paul Heyman's sins are coming due. There are moments in wrestling history that transcend the business. Moments that pierce through kayfabe, past the promos and punches, into something undeniably human. What happened that night on Raw wasn't just the return of a superstar. It was the resurrection of a legacy. It was the return of judgment. Paul Heyman didn't just lose control that night. He lost something far more precious, the illusion that he could shape the future without answering to his past. Because for all his brilliance, for all his cunning, Heyman forgot one truth: Roman Reigns is not just a character. He is not just a champion. He is an empire. One built on betrayal, on blood, on sacrifice, and Heyman helped build it. Now, he may be the first one it crushes. Backstage, Heyman was nowhere to be found. Cameras searched for him after the segment. Seth Rollins stormed through corridors demanding answers. "Where is he?" one crew member overheard him shout. "He said Roman was done. He promised me." But no one could find Paul. Some said he left the building the moment Roman turned his back. Others claimed he was holed up in Vince's old office, shaking, whispering to himself that this wasn't part of the plan. Because the plan was supposed to be airtight. Roman gone. Seth crowned. Heyman in the shadows again, pulling strings. But Roman never told anyone when he was coming back. Not even the locker room leaders. Not even creative. This return was kept under wraps by a handful of trusted insiders, a strategic strike. A ghost walking through the fog of war. And for Heyman, it was the ultimate betrayal. But isn't that poetic? The man who built an empire on loyalty now finds himself abandoned by it. Seth Rollins was furious. Not just because of the surprise, but because he knew what it meant. Roman wasn't here for titles, not yet. He was here for blood. And the first to bleed would be the man who had knelt at his feet only to kneel again, at Seth's. The reaction from the WWE Universe was instant and volcanic. Social media erupted. Roman is back trended worldwide within minutes. Clips of Heyman's face, drained of color, eyes wide in fear, flooded Instagram, TikTok, X fan accounts posted slow-motion shots of Roman's silent entrance. Commentators called it the moment the power shifted. And behind the scenes? Panic. Because WWE now finds itself on the brink of a war it never expected. The bloodline is fractured. Solo Sikoa rules SmackDown with an iron grip. Jey Uso teeters between rebellion and exile. Jimmy Uso vanished after the attack on Jey post-WrestleMania. And now Roman Reigns walks the halls of Monday Night Raw, silent, watching, calculating. He's not here to save what's broken. He's here to burn it down. And in the middle of all of it, Paul Heyman. A man without a tribe. A strategist without control. For years, Heyman had spoken for power. First for Brock Lesnar. Then for Roman Reigns. He whispered in the ears of gods. But now? The gods are angry. Back at the hotel that night, a camera caught Heyman arriving alone. No entourage. No Rollins. No security. Just Paul, hunched, moving slowly, head buried beneath a hoodie, flanked by silence. Reporters shouted questions. Did you know Roman was coming back? Are you still aligned with Seth? What happens now? Heyman didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence said everything. He was afraid. Because the worst thing about betrayal is wondering when it comes back for you. And Roman? He doesn't forget. Over the next 48 hours, the wrestling world exploded with speculation. Sources claimed that Roman's return was planned weeks in advance, but only a select few, including Triple H, were informed. Even Seth Rollins reportedly didn't know until the moment the lights went out. Heyman? He found out the way the rest of us did, with the lights fading, the Titantron black, and the arena trembling with the echo of 3 haunting words. Acknowledge me. Inside WWE, morale shifted. Seth's faction, once a beacon of the future, now looked exposed. Vulnerable. And Rollins, brilliant as he is, began asking questions he never thought he'd have to ask. Was Heyman lying to me? Did he know Roman was coming and hide it? Or worse, is Roman back to destroy us both? Because Roman didn't throw a punch that night. He didn't need to. He made his statement with presence. With silence. With a glare that could cut through steel. And when he turned his back on Heyman, when he walked away without striking, without yelling, that was worse than a spear. It was a promise. A storm is coming. And Paul Heyman is the eye of it. Meanwhile, SmackDown officials scrambled. Rumors swirled that Solo Sikoa, now styling himself as the true heir, was preparing a statement. That Jacob Fatu and Zilla Fatu, caught in the middle of a family civil war, were reconsidering their allegiance. That Roman's return may not just affect Raw, but rip through both brands like a wildfire. But none of them mattered more than the question everyone kept asking backstage. What will Roman do next? Because now that he's back, there is no turning back. He doesn't need to beat Seth Rollins for a title. He doesn't need to take back the undisputed championship. His mission is simpler. Make Paul Heyman pay. And to do that, he'll dismantle everything Heyman built. Piece by piece. Ally by ally. Match by match. And when the smoke clears? Only one man will be left standing. The one who was never truly gone. The one who never forgot. The one who doesn't forgive. By the next Monday night, WWE was buzzing with attention that couldn't be faked. You could feel it from the opening match to the final segment. Superstars whispering in hallways. Producers watching monitors like hawks. Talent pacing backstage, glancing over shoulders, unsure if he would appear again. The question hung over the entire roster like a storm cloud: was Roman Reigns coming back tonight? No graphic. No tease. No mention from commentary. But that was the point. Silence had become Roman's greatest weapon. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman was nowhere to be seen. WWE tried to explain it away. Heyman is attending to legal business, they said. He's coordinating international appearances for Seth's faction. But no one bought it. Because the truth was more raw, more human. Paul Heyman was hiding. He knew exactly what Roman's return meant. This wasn't about belts or business. It was about punishment. About accountability. About betrayal. And Heyman had betrayed the wrong man. Backstage, Rollins held meetings with his faction behind closed doors. Creed brothers. Bronson. Liv Morgan, who'd recently aligned herself with the faction in whispers and innuendos. Security was doubled. Rooms were checked. Monitors were monitored. Still, everyone knew something was coming. And they were right. Halfway through the night, the Titantron flickered. Not a promo. Not a commercial. Just security footage. Grainy. Black and white. A loading dock. Empty, until it wasn't. Roman Reigns stepped out of the shadows, wearing black. Hooded. Silent. The arena erupted. Commentary went silent. And Paul Heyman, watching from a television backstage, his face turned gray. No entrance music. No pyro. Just the image of a man who once ruled everything, stepping back into the arena he once owned like a ghost coming home to haunt. Roman didn't speak that night. He didn't even make it to the ring. Instead, the screen cut to black, and 4 words appeared. Paul. You betrayed me. Those 4 words, plain and chilling, echoed louder than any promo. And from that moment on, Paul Heyman's world began to crumble. WWE officials offered him a security detail. He refused. I'm not afraid, he reportedly told a backstage producer. But he was. Because Roman wasn't coming to shout. He wasn't coming to debate. He was coming to remind Paul Heyman that loyalty isn't a line on a contract. It's a bond. And when that bond is broken, the consequences are biblical. In the weeks that followed, Roman struck like lightning. Silent, sudden, and surgical. At one live show in St. Louis, Bronson Reed was scheduled to headline. He never made it to the ring. Found unconscious in the parking lot, no witnesses, no comment. Just a message left in red paint on the windshield of his SUV. I'm not finished. At another event in Toronto, the Creed brothers opened the show. During the main event, both were found locked in a production crate backstage. No sign of who did it. No fingerprints. Just 2 words etched into the steel with a knife. Still watching. And Heyman? He unraveled. He stopped appearing on camera. Missed live events. Seth Rollins began to look irritated, betrayed by the man who promised him control. Their alliance started cracking. Commentators tried to explain it away, calling it mind games. But backstage? The fear was real. Because no one plays games like Roman Reigns. He'd gone silent for months. Not even WWE Creative knew his return date. And now, he was orchestrating a dismantling, not of WWE, but of Paul Heyman's credibility. Because Roman didn't just want retribution. He wanted Heyman to feel what it was like to be forgotten. Abandoned. Betrayed. The same way Roman had felt when he collapsed in the locker room after WrestleMania and no one came to help him. Not Seth. Not Jimmy. And certainly not Paul. Because Paul Heyman, when Roman needed him most, didn't stand by his tribal chief. He made a deal with the devil, and called it strategy. But now? The devil is back. And he remembers everything. Backstage at Raw, Paul Heyman finally reappeared. Thinner. Pale. Dressed in a black suit, tie askew. He spoke to no one. Walked with his head down. And when a production assistant asked if he was ready for his segment, he just muttered. "He's here. I can feel it." And he was right. Because as the main event began, and Seth Rollins took the ring with the remaining members of his faction, the crowd was electric. They expected a run-in. A fight. But Roman didn't give them that. Not yet. Instead, the lights cut again. A single spotlight illuminated the announce desk. And there, sitting in the empty seat beside commentary, was Roman Reigns. Calm. Hands folded. No mic. Just watching. Like a judge awaiting a confession. And when Heyman finally saw him, on the monitor backstage, he broke. Not in rage. Not in fear. But in grief. He knew then, this wasn't about who runs Raw. Or who wears the gold. This was personal. Roman had come not just to punish Heyman. He had come to end him. And as the episode faded to black, the camera zoomed in on Roman's face. Not angry. Not shouting. Just staring. Like a man who had already decided the verdict. Paul Heyman will have to answer for everything. And soon, the WWE Universe will witness what happens when the most dominant force in modern wrestling finally speaks. Because silence was just the beginning. And now, Roman Reigns is ready to finish what Paul Heyman started. The following week, Raw opened with a camera backstage, no pyrotechnics, no theme song, no commentary. Just a hallway. Dimly lit. Silent. A lone figure stood at the end of it. Roman Reigns. Still in black. Still quiet. But this time, something was different. His hands were balled into fists. His jaw was tight. The camera held on him for 10 full seconds. No words. No movement. Just presence. And then, the show began. But no one could focus. Not the crowd. Not the talent. Not even the commentary team. Because everyone was waiting. Waiting for when the storm would break. Paul Heyman opened the second hour of Raw, walking slowly to the ring. He wore a blue suit, wrinkled, shirt untucked slightly at the back, like he'd gotten dressed in the dark. His usual swagger was gone. No smile. No microphone held high. Only fear. He stood in the center of the ring, looked into the camera, and did something no one expected. He begged. "Roman, if you're watching this." His voice trembled. The crowd fell silent. "I never wanted to abandon you." Boos rained from the crowd. "You were the greatest thing I ever represented. You were family. But you disappeared. You." He stopped.